It is Sunday night, and we are on what is reportedly the eve of a massive, massive signing for South Carolina's new offensive coordinator, Kendall Briles. It's not official, but if he comes to Columbia, is he the difference maker Shane Beamer's been looking for from offense for the last several years? We talk about it next. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler, host of the Locked On Gamecocks show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America. We appreciate you for helping us get there. We got a great show for you today. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Game Time. Listen, download the Game Time app. I told you 1,000 times. I'm going to probably keep telling you because it's the best thing out there. But download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. That's with Game Time. So it's not official yet, but rumors are swirling and have been for a couple days now that Kendall Briles is set to become the next offensive coordinator for South Carolina. It's a very popular name. He's a young OC. He's been all over the place in a lot of good offenses. He's been under a lot of other good head coaches. He's had a lot of success in most everywhere he's gone. His dad, obviously, Art Briles, tremendous offensive mind. We'll leave it at that. But it's a tremendously impressive resume that he has. And I said this last week, no matter who they brought in, that was going to be the case, especially when you compare it to what was currently in place at South Carolina and has really been under the Shane Beamer era, where they've struggled a lot offensively, no matter who the coordinator is. Now, the resume is great. We did a little deep dive into who he is, what his offenses are, what to expect, all that kind of stuff. And I love it. I love it. Like he is a name that he's been at Florida State. He's been at Florida Atlantic under Lane Kiffin. He's been at Baylor for the past 3 years. I'm sorry, at TCU for the past 3 years. He was at Baylor before that, way back in the day. He's been at Houston, Arkansas for 3 years under Sam Pittman. And everywhere he's gone, he's had a lot of success. And the most impressive thing, and I'll get this out of the way right now, a lot of times you have an offensive coordinator that's like, want to be like pass heavy, or they want to like really have an emphasis on the run game. And you see parts of their offense flourish and parts of their offense not fall by the wayside, but not garner as much attention or focus in their play calling. A great example, this year's Alabama cannot run the football, and they are really creative on offense, and they can throw the ball pretty well, but they can't run the ball. And you look at their numbers at the end of the season, I think they're averaging like only 355 yards per game. And most of it is all through the passing game. That's a long-winded example, but we have seen this in the past. We've seen South Carolina at times where if you aren't able to run the football, let Spencer Rattler air it out, figure something out that way. The thing I love most about Kendall Briles right off the bat is not the track record. It's not his coaching tree. It's not the fact that he has been the one that has taught several big-name head coaches different parts of this offensive identity and scheme that he and his dad come up with as the version of the air raid. It's the fact that everywhere he's had success, he's had to do it with a different style quarterback, different system players, and a lot of times at places that don't have nearly as much talent as some of the top-tier programs. Like FAU, Houston, those are G5 places, and they were in the top 10 in the country in offensive yards per game, yards per play, and all that kind of stuff. Arkansas, the only time they were successful under Sam Pittman is when he was the OC. And that was when KJ Jefferson, who not the best passer, but a pretty gifted and physical runner. So you saw his switch up a little bit of their offensive identity that he had from his previous stop that he then shifted over to at Arkansas. I say all that because that's one of the most important things about this hire. Like, you don't need to come in and fit the current roster from a personnel standpoint. That would be unfair, and it would be just, square peg, round hole type situation. But you do need somebody who is gifted and talented enough to come in and be able to see what you already have in place before another recruit is brought on campus, before anyone's signed out of the portal, any of that stuff. to be able to look at what you have, assess the roster and the talent that you currently have on offense, and still figure out ways to get yards and get points. It sounds very simple. South Carolina fans know this better than anyone. It has not been for South Carolina. And you think about the talent that's on this team already from a receiver standpoint, the talent you had at the running back position and the veteran experience you had at that position as well. And then obviously what happened with Sellers and his regression, especially statistically this season. Briles is a phenomenal hire if this thing becomes official tomorrow. Like for so many reasons that, again, we were going to get into all of them, but I'll give you another one right off the bat. When's the last time South Carolina has gone out and landed one of the most sought after coaches? I wouldn't say players, that's probably a little bit unfair, but coaches or staff members to come to Columbia. I mean, they have Clayton White is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Getting him to Columbia was not something that was like, oh my gosh, what a massive pickup at the time. He's still underrated despite going into year 6. Briles is a buzzworthy, like top 10 call when there's an opening guy on everyone's short list across the country. That's one of the reasons he's been all over the place and has so much experience. It's also because of how innovative and successful he's been. Now, that being able to have a splash hire is not going to guarantee you success. But as, what's the best way to put this? As surface level and materialistic as I can be, it feels pretty good for South Carolina to go out there and make a splash hire. That is not something we have seen done a ton under Shane Beamer. I mean, getting rid of coaches is not something we saw him do a ton so far in his career, and he's gotten rid of 3 offensive coaches this year alone, and now you're going into a coaching carousel that's one of the most historic we've seen in forever, and you go get one of the best coordinators in the country. I love it. Like, every single part of this hire has to be vetted correctly, and more importantly, it has to work. Like this is not a, oh man, let's cross our fingers and see what happens. Like, if it doesn't work, then Shane Beamer will be out of a job. Point blank, period. And you saw last year when he had an opening at the same position, it's like he stuck his head out of his office door and was like, who's closest? Shula, are you doing anything next year? He was like, no, nobody wants me. Perfect. You'll do. Going out and being in this process where you have, I honestly thought they would go to the guy at East Carolina. I thought they would look somewhere like closer to home in this region. All like maybe lean on some of his, former contacts and coworkers, like just not doing anything that's not outside the box, but like that's too much of a risk, right? Like, and too unfamiliar is probably a better way to put it. This is probably unfamiliar. Now he's got a lot of ties to South Carolina, and just from various stints with other coaches and things like that. And also, former players that were at South Carolina that he coached at other stops, like, Rocket Sanders when he was at Arkansas. But to go get a guy from the Big 12 at Baylor, who's been very successful, come into the SEC and hire him away when you've got, I think, between 10 to 13 new head coaches in this year's coaching carousel looking for coordinators. And you better believe Kendall Briles is on the short list for a lot of those. This is a massive win. And I'm proud of Shane Beamer for doing something that he's not been consistent on doing in the past or comfortable with doing in the past, which is, again, the unfamiliarity, taking a risk, because that's what this program needs right now. And what, like, the season is, we're not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, you know what, everything's on the up and up now after the 4-8 season, and we're in the off season, and we're going to get right back on the bandwagon, and like next year's our year. But that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, I brought this up on a show a couple weeks ago, and that is they're starting to stack wins, like in the off season, and there's still a long off season to go, but they're starting to stack wins and do so in a way that's building momentum in so many positive ways. going into the next part of this college football calendar. I say it all the time. Like, no one's above criticism, and we have to demand more of the staff and the program and all that kind of stuff, and the players, all of that. But we also celebrate the wins, and we give credit when credit's due. And this, if it becomes official on Monday, is a massive credit and newsworthy moment, I think, for Shane Beamer in his tenure. Now, when we come back, you guys know I love to do it. You know I love to do it. We're going to get into the stat deep dive that I did earlier today about Kendall Briles and his offenses and what to expect. We will talk about that next. Locked on Gamecocks continues right after this. All right, we're back with the second part of the show. Before we get into it, I'll tell you what I am excited for next year, and it's not even South Carolina related. It's World Cup related. And the World Cup is coming back to America. They just announced the first round stages for the U.S. team. They're going to be playing in L.A. Against Paraguay in the first game of the Cup, and then they're playing in Seattle against Australia in the second game as well. If you want to go out to Seattle, I wouldn't advise it. But if you want to go to the World Cup and it's in Seattle, I would advise it. And I would do so by getting your tickets on Game Time. I tell you what, getting tickets to usually any kind of event like this, especially one of this magnitude, is always the hardest part of any of the planning. That's why the Game Time app is clutch. It's finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops. You can track all that in real time. You can get alerts. You can see the great seats that are open, full sections to choose from, and you can see exactly what your view will be before you ever step foot in the stadium with their app every single time. It is the best customer service. It is the best functionality of a ticketing app I've ever used. And I tell you what, the World Cup is going to be a massive, massive deal. They're going to be playing all over. Maybe you're in Columbia and you take a short trip over to Atlanta, Georgia, where they're going to be playing a lot of the games as well. If you do that, do so with the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with Game Time. All right, let's get into the good stuff. Let's get into my favorite thing to do here, and that is a deep dive. And a Kendall Briles deep dive is especially exciting. And I tell you what, like, I've put some of these off with trying to figure out like who the OC is going to be, and like I've kind of wanted to wait until the hire is actually made before getting into a full on several hours worth statistical look at one of the offenses. I almost did it with the guy from Utah, Beck, the other day. I did not do that. Whoever the hire is, we will do one after the hire. But Kendall Briles, and looking at his numbers from all the different offenses and seeing just like some of the past seasons, and like you'll be familiar with his work for sure. You look at the resume like I brought up earlier, okay? This is a guy that coached at Baylor under his dad, and he did it when they had the best offense in the country in 2015. He went with Lane Kiffin to FAU, had a top 10 offense there. Went to Houston the year after, had a top 10 offense there. Then he went to FSU, and then after 2019, he went to Arkansas for 3 years under Sam Pittman. When he went to Arkansas, remember, this is an Arkansas team that was coming out of the Chad Morris era. They had like, I want to say it was like less than 5 wins in their 2 previous seasons. Like they were awful. They were the worst team in the entire conference by far. The offense needed to work immediately, and that's exactly what he did. And the numbers you talk about, like from a yards per play standpoint, first year they were 68th, second year they were 38th, and his third year they were 25th. He had a pretty great quarterback. Wink, wink. So does South Carolina. So the thing, like I brought up earlier, that impressed me most is this is not somebody that we think about the air raid, we think about like the run and shoot, the fun and gun, whatever you want to call it, RPO, up tempo. That's part of his identity. I was at Lane Kiffin's presser a week ago, and he brought up how he has kind of molded his offensive like philosophies throughout his career. And what he said was, you know, I sat there under the two of the greatest defensive minds in football history with Pete Carroll and Nick Saban, and I would ask them like, what gives you fits and and struggles as a defense or defensive coach when you're facing an offense. And then whatever they would say, that's how he would try to go design plays, build a game plan, and figure out ways to take advantage and expose defenses with his offense. And Lane Kiffin's done a great job of that. He learned it from Briles. Jeff Levy, same way, because he also was under Briles at Baylor. Heupel, he also learned part of their offense, and especially the part of the wrinkle that they have that very few teams use, where they spread you out, especially the receiver standpoint, and the receivers are split out like outside of the hashes, a couple of like feet sometimes next to the sideline. Very, very different than most traditional offensive setups, especially in the passing game. They use the entire field. That is one of the key staple points of his offensive philosophy, is use the entire field to your advantage. Now, it is a hurry-up offense, and it's based on tempo. That does not mean that it is trying to put up 90 plays per game. I'm sure he would want to if he could, but that is not where they have thrived from a statistical standpoint. They're not usually ranked in like the top 10 in total plays. But the biggest component of that, and the most important part of that, is it makes all the decision-making for the quarterback as easy as possible. It also cuts out any of the pre-snap, like alignment, realignment, checks from offensive line standpoint. Like some of the things that this offensive line, specifically South Carolina, struggled with the most, especially over the past couple of years. They got better as the year went on, but like pre-snap checks, any kind of like, not audibles, but like shifting protection, sliding protection, any of the stuff before the snap that involves you having to potentially overthink or come out of your stance early, get a pre-snap penalty. All those things that have driven us crazy, those are usually cut out from this offense. You are getting up and going and trying to like call the next play as quickly as possible, take advantage of the substitution rules so the defense can't sub out and you get them tired. It's lots of formations. It's lots of pre-snap movement and a lot of window dressing. Again, like the part that Josh Heupel has adopted is different than what Lane Kiffin has. It is still very much a balanced offense where if you have a great run game and you're able to run the football effectively and you're also able to pass the ball effectively, you are not going to be one-sided in the offensive play calling or game planning. And we have seen that happen over and over and over, I feel like, at times here, where like you're either leaning too much into the run and you're not creative in any of the schemes that you're trying to or play designs in any of the run plays anyway. But also, like, how many times have you seen at 4th and 4, 3rd and 2, it just feels like the wrong call? Play to the strengths of your roster. Play to the strengths of your star talent. Kiffin told a story about this, and Briles adopted the same exact mentality. It's one of my favorite things I've ever heard a coach say. When he first met with Nick Saban, he was talking about, okay, like Saban was asking him after they lost the kick six. He said, hey, what are we doing wrong? Like, what should we be doing better on offense or differently to get out of this like rut we're in? And he comes in and he gets a whiteboard and he draws 5 numbers on the board. And he says, it's like 2, 4, 9, 27, and 88. And he goes, these are your best players. Get them the ball. Just get them the ball. It's not that hard. And that is something we did not see a ton of this year. It felt like until late. Or like Vandrevius Jacobs, how great he was at the start of the year and then kind of disappeared until the very end. So I feel like those are things that will not happen as much in this type of offense. You look at some of the numbers they've had at Baylor. They have been top 20 in the country in passing yards each of the last 3 years. They were 17th in year 1, 10th last year, and 12th this year. Remember, that's not the same for what he did at Arkansas. They still had a great offense at Arkansas, but that was not their MO. In his 11 seasons as a play caller as an OC, 9 of those seasons, his offenses have averaged at least 30 points or more. At least 30 points or more. Why is that important? I don't know, probably because of my least favorite stat I'm going to bring up this entire episode, maybe ever. How many points per game did South Carolina score this season? They were 14th with 22.7 points per game. You look at the past several years, South Carolina has been They were 14th this year in scoring offense in the SEC. They were 12th in 2023. They were actually 7th in 2022. They were 13th in 2021. They were 10th in 2020. They were 12th in 2019. I'm looking at all these past seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons in the last 7 years. They have averaged more than 30 points in a season twice. Just twice. And it was last year with Lenore Sellers in that offense at 30.5 points per game. And the other one was 2022, and they averaged 32.2 points per game. That was when you had your first NFL draft pick at quarterback in 30-something years. And I bring that up to say you also had you had a first round receiver. You had a better offensive line, and you had some big wins that year too. That was one of the more star-powered offenses I think you've had at South Carolina in the past 5-6 years, right? I bring all that up to say Briles hasn't needed that to find success at any of the stops that he's been, any of them. You look at the numbers for his scoring offense. Like I said, 9 of his 11 years, they've had at least 30 points or more. They've also put up over 40 in 3 of those seasons. From a total yardage standpoint, you think about how frustrating it's been to watch this offense just go stagnant and not be able to move the football up and down the field. For South Carolina this year, you averaged 336 yards per game. It was the 15th ranked offense in the SEC. Last year was fine. 2023, you were 9th. You were 9th the year before that. 13th the year before that. 10th the year before that. 11th the year before that. I mean, we're talking going back to the Muschamp thing. Not much has changed. But again, in the last 7 years, you have been in the bottom half and near the bottom of the SEC in total yards per game. And I bring that stat up because it's not a tell-all, the stat that means just putting up a bunch of yards doesn't mean necessarily how great of a football team you are. But in this case, only one of those 7 seasons at South Carolina, were they able to put up more than 400 yards a game? Only one. I think the second highest after that was 370 yards or 360 yards per game for a season. That's woefully low. Briles' offenses have put up at least 400 yards or more in 10 of his 11 years as an OC. The lowest he's had is 391.5 yards per game, and that was his first year at Arkansas when Arkansas was 2-8. Every year since, he has had an average of around 448 yards per game for his offenses. Now, I brought this up as well. What this offense is predicated on is the RPO, and it's hurry up, no huddle, but it's not to do what Kiffin wants to do, which is run 100 plays. It is to make sure you consistently have an advantage over the defense. They cannot substitute out. They cannot get their play calls in. You are your play ends. You are sprinting up to the line. It's pretty incredible to watch how coordinated it is. Where the center, you use one ball the entire time. You're not throwing balls in from the sideline or anything like that, changing those out. It is very, very methodical and very, very purposeful as well. Yards per play, though. You are talking about this year's offense for South Carolina. Finished the year 14th in the SEC, 5.36 yards per play. I honestly didn't even think it was that high. This is better than I thought. Last year, you were still under 6 yards per play. Year before that, you were near the bottom. They have not averaged more than 6 yards per play in any season. Let's see here. Oh, my goodness, the Muschamp days were the worst. Since 2018. So, again, since 2019, the last 7 years, you have not had a single season where you average more than 6 yards per play. Briles' offenses do that consistently and effortlessly. 9 of his 11 years as a play caller, they have averaged over 6 yards per play, and they have ranked in the top 30 or 40 in the nation in every year but one. And again, that was in 2019 for FSU. Everywhere he's gone has been successful. Everywhere he's gone has been successful. And this is not something where you have to look at it and say, man, this could really work if we have a quarterback that can fit a pro style system that has to fit into all these little, again, square peg, round hole situations like we did with Shula. I am going to run an NFL pro style offense, and we're going to hope that this generational athletic quarterback is going to be able to fit into that mold. It didn't work. That is not what you're getting with Kendal Briles. Not in the least. Now, that is all for the deep dive. We're going to continue this tomorrow because I think tomorrow is the day we're going to actually hear the news announcing that he has been hired. By all accounts, from everything we have heard, it is a done deal. It just hasn't been officially announced yet. So we will wait for that to happen. But everything is pointing in the direction that this is not just rumors that they could land him or they're close to getting it. It is a done deal. It just has not been announced yet. So we will talk about the last part of today's episode and some of the players that have hit the portal for South Carolina. A fifth player hit the portal earlier today. We'll talk about that when we come back. Locked On Gamecocks continues right after this. All right, wrapping up today's show. I appreciate you guys joining us. I know it's a lot of information that sometimes I stutter and stumble through, but I'm pumped. I'm very excited, and I think y'all should be as well. But we're going to close out today's show. Before we do, I want to give a massive, massive shout out to one of my favorite holiday traditions, and that is our friends at Omaha Steaks. I tell you what, if you are still looking to buy Christmas gifts, maybe you haven't bought all of them, maybe you haven't bought any like me. Not great. The holidays come with two big goals: feeding people well and finding gifts they will actually love. When you want both of those things handled in one move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your front door. I tell you what, Christmas is in. I'm trying to do the math in my head, which is never good. I think it's in 17 days. There's Sizzle All the Way sale that's happening right now. You can stock up and save in a huge way with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners, if you use the promo code COLLEGE, all capital letters, one word, use that at checkout, you get an extra $35 off with that code. I don't know if you've ever received Omaha Steaks before. They are fantastic. It's one of my favorite gifts that I've gotten as an adult. Probably it would have been one when I was a kid too, but I just never got that. Thanks a lot, Mom. So listen, if you're thinking about giving Legos to your kid or your any of your friends, don't. Give them Omaha Steaks. You don't need Legos. You want a ribeye. Save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during the Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See the site for details, but that's omahasteaks.com, code COLLEGE. Let's close out today's show with, I don't want to say it's bad news. It's just, stuff that you expect in this day and age, and it's going to continue to happen over the next several weeks, I'm sure. But South Carolina lost their fifth player to the transfer portal. Remember, the portal has not opened yet, but they did lose linebacker Jaron Willis, who announced via his agency, Set Vision Management, that he is going to enter the transfer portal when it does open on January 2nd. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings on kids and athletes being able to enter the portal, do what's best for them, go get more playing time, go make more money, and do things that are great for you and your family and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of positives in all that. I have a lot of feelings as well when I hear that that announcement of entering the portal is made via your agency, and they did it on social media. Especially when you're a player that has played in 20 games at South Carolina and logged a total of 9 tackles. Willis was a 4-star recruit out of Leesburg, Georgia. He started at Ole Miss, came here a couple years ago, played in a couple games last year, played in 11 games this year, had a fumble recovery for a touchdown against South Carolina State. That was the highlight. But he becomes I said fifth player earlier. One of those was either a preferred walk-on or not to be rude, it would say no-star recruits named Amazon Littlejohn, which is an incredible name, by the way. But he is not necessarily being counted against the roster because he's not a scholarship player. The 4 scholarship players that have entered or have made their intentions known to that they are going to enter, Michael Smith, the former 4-star top 100 tight end. I was really bummed about that. It was back in October he announced that. Nick Sharp, the offensive lineman that transferred in from Wake, and then Xavion Hardy as well. All 4 of those have made their announcement. Man, Xavion Hardy, just frustrating that never worked out. 6'5", 290, kid out of Macon, Georgia. Kind of like an old school player, East Mississippi Community College. I felt like that was like a lost art in recruiting nowadays is the JUCO players. He was the number 1 JUCO player in the country when he coming out of as a prospect. So those 4 are gone. The portal itself opens January 2nd. It's open for 2 weeks, and we will be very busy during those 2 weeks as well. I hope you guys have a great Monday. If you're listening to this then, if it's a Tuesday, if it's Monday night, I don't care. Whatever it is, I hope this brought you joy and made your day a little bit better or easier. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode as well. And until then, go Cox.